Talk Zone presents the Geek Speak Radio Show with your hosts, Henry and Romo. Your top spot for everything entertainment and pop culture, including TV, movies, comics, casting news, and more. Now, here are your hosts, Henry and Romo.
And here we are. Welcome to the Geek Speak Radio Show. You ready to get scared again?
Yeah.
Romo is afraid of anything scary, really. I mean,
Well, not really.
Damon can come up behind him and go boo, and he'll jump.
No, I'm not that scared. I just like the idea of, it fascinates me, the idea of getting scared.
Fascinating. So, how about we get scared again?
Let's do it.
Well, anything scares you, like I said, but how about we do it again? Today, we did it yesterday with a couple of really good guests, and it got a lot of emails. Everybody liked it. We may have them back on again, especially Pazuzu. Everybody liked that interview.
Yeah.
Well, I have a little announcement to make. I'll make it in the second hour regarding her and something we're doing here for Halloween. Mm-hmm. But right now, we have our first guest today. Her name is Sherri Brake. She is an author, a tour guide, and she has something called the Heartland Tours. Let's welcome her to the show.
Hi, how are you guys doing?
Doing good. Thanks for coming on the show. So I was actually going to start the conversation with you by asking you what got you interested in the paranormal.
Well, I grew up back in the 60s watching television shows like The Outer Limits and The Twilight Zone and The Addams Family, all those old quirky black and white TV shows that dealt with the odd and paranormal. And I just was fascinated by it. I was glued to the television set, and when I could learn to read, I would go out and I'd go to the local library and I'd get as many books as I could on unusual subjects like that, everything from Bigfoot to crop circles to the pyramids to witchcraft. I mean, just a very wide gamut of subject matter for a young child. So I guess you could say I've always been odd.
Yeah,
but,
actually,
it's
me
fascinating.
Too. Yeah, I was going to say me too, because that's what I started reading when I was younger too, and watching those TV shows also. What do you think? Why are people so fascinated? I won't say obsessed, but why are they so fascinated with the paranormal, with ghosts and all that?
Well, first of all, I started doing paranormal investigations a long time ago. It's been almost 26 years now, and it was way back before any of these television shows came out. So when I first started dabbling in this and going in and doing private investigations, you didn't really bring it up because it wasn't widely accepted. And nowadays, there's such a huge interest in the paranormal and ghost hunting technology and going to these haunted locations that everybody is just really into it. And I think with the human nature, like what you guys were talking about a few minutes ago, everybody loves to be scared.
Yeah.
They like that fear. It's like going to an amusement park. You might not really love to get on the roller coaster, but you're going to get on it, and it's that thrill that keeps you going with ghost hunting. Because not every night is a hit. Not every night do you have activity. Not every night are you going to see something out of the corner of your eye, or are you going to record something. But I think it's the thrill of the hunt, and we love to be frightened. It's just human nature.
Yeah, yesterday we had John Kachuba on, which I know you know him also.
Yes,
and
I do.
we were talking about this also, and both of us mentioned that another reason why people may be so fascinated is that it gives them hope that there's an afterlife. Do you think that's part of it too?
Yes. Yeah, I agree. And yeah, John Kachuba is a great friend and a wonderful author. And it's just, it's amazing the different types of people that love to come on ghost hunts and on events, no matter what religion they are. And I've had a couple of people pull me aside and say, hey, we're devout Catholics, or hey, we were raised Southern Baptist, and, this is all kind of voodoo, but we believe that there's some kind of an afterlife. And if you look at the history of world religion, there's over 2,000 religions worldwide that believe in some kind of an afterlife, an existence, whether it's your soul, whether you're reincarnated or whatever. They all believe that once we die, something continues on. And when you look at some of the laws of physics, we would have that energy continue on. It's the law of thermodynamics. Energy doesn't go away. It just changes shape or form. And if our bodies have an electrical impulse, if they're energy driven, if you follow that law of thermodynamics, that energy can never go away. It has to go into something else, or it has to become something else. It has to exist after we're gone.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And you're right. The religion has nothing to do with it, but I think just everybody, especially in the times we live in today, they just want, some kind of hope that there's something better afterwards, even if it's, just walking around here. Do you think that's what ghosts or apparitions, that's what they are, is just memories?
Well, there's different kinds. I mean, it's just not cut and dried. Anything with the paranormal field is not black and white. And I'm a skeptic. I love the science aspect of it. I love using equipment. I love to show people how to use equipment. But as far as ghosts, there's a difference between ghosts and spirits. There's a difference between non-intelligent hauntings and intelligent hauntings. There's residual energy and imprinted energy. I mean, there's all different kinds of things. To give you an example, an intelligent haunting would be living in a haunted house and seeing a woman come across the floor towards you, and she reaches out to you and tries to talk to you. That shows some type of intelligence. She's wanting to converse with you. A non-intelligent haunting would be seeing that woman walk through the hallway, and she doesn't acknowledge anybody or anything and doesn't make any attempt to try to contact you. And then you have residual energy, which would be what people would feel if they went out onto an old battlefield and they walked across the battlefield and they could feel the sadness, the emotion that the soldiers went through. That would be imprinted energy. So there's all different kinds of hauntings and activity. It's a little confusing.
Yeah, I know most people, including my co-host Roma, would probably run away if a ghost tried to communicate with you. But would you suggest trying to answer them or communicate with them?
Well, it depends on how far you want to take it. If you guys are, sitting in your house late at night and you see something, chances are you're probably not going to really want to communicate with it because that's a little freakish for most people. I think for many people, especially people that go out and ghost hunt on the tours, they like going into another building, someplace that's not their home. It's different if you chase ghosts in a building that you don't have to sleep in, completely different feeling there.
We're talking to Sherri Brake. She's an author, tour guide, and we'll get into the tour itself, Haunted Heartland Tours, when we come back. I'm going to take a little break right now.
The Geek Speak Radio Show will be right back.
Hello there. You've discovered TalkZone.com, the best in Internet talk radio.
The first step on the road back to reality.
You're listening to the Geek Speak Radio Show on TalkZone.com.
And here we are, back on the Geek Speak Radio Show with Romo and Henry and Sherri Brake talking about Haunted Heartland Tours. Before we get to that, though, Sherri, you are also an author, so why don't you tell everybody about the books you've written?
Right, yes. Well, this past year I've published 2 books with the History Press. The first one came out in 2009, and it is called Haunted Stark County, Ohio, which kind of focuses on the hauntings throughout the Canton, Akron, Ohio area. And the second book, the latest one, came out just a couple of months ago, and it focuses on one of the most haunted locations in the nation, the Old Mansfield Reformatory. The name of the book is The Haunted History of the Ohio State Reformatory. And if you've ever seen the movie Shawshank Redemption, which I'm betting probably both of you have, that's where that was filmed at, was at the Old Mansfield Reformatory. So those books came out, and the Reformatory book's doing great. Of course, the Reformatory is one of the most haunted locations, and they have ghost hunts there. They have their haunted prison experience that goes on in the month of October, and I think they have around 40,000 people every year that come and do tours at the building, either daytime tours or their nighttime ghost hunts. So it's a pretty popular location and very active. And
the link is up on geekspeakradioshow.com if you guys want to look at the books, get the books, and also the Haunted Heartland Tours website is linked up on geekspeakradioshow.com. Romo, you wanted to ask her something.
Yeah, I wanted to know, on your tours, I just wanted to know if you've ever experienced a spirit or some being, communicating with you.
I have, and, I'm always a skeptic. I'm open-minded, though. For me, the enjoyment comes with finding these locations to take people to and them telling them what they might expect showing them how to use equipment, giving them the tour of the facility, and then turning them loose so hopefully they have an experience. But I have had some really unusual things happen to me. I saw a shadow person. And shadow people, you typically see those out of the corner of your eye. And it's a movement in a shadowy form. And when you turn and look head on at it, it disappears. But I did see one of those at the West Virginia Penitentiary several years ago. And that's an old prison that sits in Moundsville, West Virginia. And it's been closed since 1995. And I was setting up that evening to do a ghost hunting class on site. And there was only one other person in the building with me at that time, and she's one of the tour guides, and she was up getting the gift shop ready to open it up. So I was doing a quick walkthrough of the building on my own. And mind you, this building is huge. It sits on 10 acres, and it's a prison with walls that are about 5 foot thick of stone. It's massive. So I go down into the basement area of the penitentiary where one of the inmates had been murdered back in the 1980s. And they basically had cut this guy to ribbons. And it's one of the most active areas in the entire prison. So I'm down there walking around, and it's daylight outside, but once you're down in this basement area, it's the boiler room. It's very dark. Hardly any daylight comes in at all down there. And I'm walking around, and I start to come out of the basement, and there are several stone steps that I have to go up to get back up into the courtyard so I can see daylight ahead of me. And when I look up, I see this huge human-shaped shadow dart from one side of the doorway across where I can see daylight to the other side of the doorway around a little alcove. And it blocked out daylight. And I thought to myself, that's the tour guide. She's going to try to scare me. She knows I'm down here by myself. She's going to pop around that alcove, and she's going to jump out at me. And I'm thinking, I'm going to get one over on her. I'm going to scare her first. So I go running to jump around the corner of this alcove, and I do, and there's nobody there.
Wow.
And I
just gave me goosebumps.
Oh, yeah. I wasn't ready for anything like that because I did not think it was paranormal. It looked human. I thought, that's Lori. She's the only other person in the entire building. We're not going to have any guests for another 2 hours. And I didn't expect, I didn't have a camera. I didn't have any kind of ghost hunting equipment. But you're right. I mean, it just puts the hair on your arms just stand up because I knew. I had experienced what so many people try to experience, and that was just a typical shadow person. And people have seen him all over that building. And when it happens, I mean, you hope you're ready. You hope you have that piece of equipment aimed in the right direction and everything turned on and your batteries are charged. But, look at me, 26 years of investigating, and all I had with me was a flashlight, But, yeah, I do occasionally see things and hear things. It's far and few in between. I have long hair. And sometimes on ghost hunts, I'll have a little pool at the back of my head, with my hair, and it'll cause me to think that there's a tour guest behind me needing help or something, and I'll turn, and there won't be anybody there. Wow. That gets your attention pretty fast. And I've recorded things on a digital voice recorder. I'm sure you guys are probably familiar with EVP, electronic voice phenomena, catching those voices on tape because human ears can't hear them. Whenever you get a voice like that, boy, that really gets your attention. So I like the scientific aspect of it. I love using, electromagnetic frequency detectors. I love using dowsing rods. I love using, anything with night shot or night vision. Thermal cameras, boy, it'd be wonderful to have one of those, but boy, they're pricey.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've seen a lot of shadow people and animals also in my lifetime. And like you, I've never had the camera or anything ready because, it's kind of like trying to catch lightning, take a picture of lightning. You got to know when it's going to hit, and you don't. And
it doesn't. And, I was always puzzled as to how come people see shadow people out of the corner of their eye. You very, very rarely do you see them direct on. And I actually got brave enough to ask my optometrist that question. And I'm thinking, what do I have to lose? So I was in getting an eye exam, and I kind of just nonchalantly brought up the subject of ghosts. And he's like, oh, yeah, I've seen those, television shows. And I said, well, I got a question for you. And I said, how come with these shadow people, why do you think people only see them out of the corner of their eyes? And he had a really surprising answer. he told me that the color spectrum that a human can see is a greater amount of color in your peripheral vision than it is looking directly on at something. So he told me that the possibility of seeing something out of the corner of your eye with that wider range is a possibility, and then when you go to look directly at it, you lose it.
Never heard that before.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
That would explain it.
Yeah. Like I said, I've seen him before. I've never gotten such a scientific explanation for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and people have been seeing shadow people for, thousands of years. You know, seeing ghosts and feeling spirit and having apparitions appear. This is something that goes all the way back to, the Bible. Every culture talks about ghosts and hauntings and unusual things. Then you've got your cryptozoology, people that see Bigfoot, Mothman, and the Loch Ness Monster and all this other stuff that's really not been proven to exist yet. The paranormal field is extremely varied and it's very wide. It goes from everything from crop circles to, alien abduction to ghosts and spirits and spirit communication and spirit photography, and it's fascinating. It really is.
The Geek Speak Radio Show will be right back.
And now, back to the Geek Speak Radio Show on TalkZone.com. Here's Henry and Romo.
And we're back on the Geek Speak Radio Show, talking to Sherri Brake. Sherri, sorry about that. We have some construction going on. I think we lost you for a second. You there?
I'm here. Yes, I am.
So anyway, before we do run out of time and hit that real break, I wanted to ask you about Haunted Heartland Tours. When did you start it? When did you get the idea for that? How did you start it?
I started that back in 2004, and I'd actually been doing haunted tours for about a year before that in a little canal town in northeast Ohio called Canal Fulton. And it's really a quaint little town there along the Ohio and Erie Canal, and it seemed perfect for a little walk by lantern light at night. And I just started compiling all these paranormal investigations that I've been doing in the town and talked about the Native American Indians in the area and the massacres that occurred and some violent frontier slayings that took place. And people started coming on the walks and started having experiences. And we do probably about 1,000 people a year on those walking tours specifically, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you look at a village that has maybe 5,000 people, that's bringing a lot of business into the town. And that's how it started off, and then it just kind of branched into some bus tours that we did, and we would take people to places like Gettysburg and Waverly Hills Sanatorium in Kentucky and the West Virginia State Penitentiary and Mansfield Reformatory and all kinds of these places that people see on television. And then that branched into haunted dinners and haunted locations and ghost hunting classes and the books, and it's something that we do year-round. We just don't do it in the month of October. And I'm lucky enough to lead all the tours myself, and I meet some really great people. And it's just really wonderful to be able to have a passion like this and to be able to do it as your job.
Would you say it's for all ages, the tours?
Well, there's some things, like the cemetery walks at night. That might be a little frightening to little ones, so I usually suggest, age 10 and up. As far as some of the large buildings that we investigate, the Mansfield Reformatory, they have their own age requirement of 21 and up. The West Virginia Penitentiary is 18 years and older. Some of the haunted dinners and things like that, we suggest that people be at least 10, 12 years old to go on something like that. You have to understand, we turn out the lights. Shut the power off. You're in the dark. If we're outdoors in the cemeteries, you're walking around old headstones and whatnot. So it can be a little intimidating for little kids. Yeah, but I think you guys would do just fine.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about my co-host Romo, but I know I would.
He'd probably be the guy that shows up with a really big flashlight.
Yeah, that's him. And I was going to say, the tours are year-round, right?
Yeah, they are. As a matter of fact, everything that we've got on the calendar is sold out through the end of November with waiting lists. Some of our events sell out online in as little as a half an hour. It's amazing the amount of interest in it, and I'm just glad that people are into it, and we get a lot of repeat guests. People are just fascinated. They love to go out. They love to learn about these historical properties, and they love the chance to get in and investigate them late at night.
Yeah. Do you have any special events planned for Halloween?
You know what? This is the first Halloween in 7 years that I am actually taking off. Okay. Do you believe that? I've got events the night before, but I'm going to be taking off Halloween, so I'm looking forward to that because that's a rarity in this business. Yeah,
I can understand that completely. And before I let you go, Sheri, we're doing the Spread of Halloween interview series here, which you're a part of now. So let me just finish by asking you, what does Halloween mean to you?
Oh, Halloween to me is a celebration of everything that we're probably told not to celebrate year-round. Spooky things, we get to eat as much candy as we want, and we get to scare each other, and we have a good excuse to do it. It's all good. All in
fun. So again, Sherri Brake, thanks a lot for coming on the show. All the links are on GeekSpeakRadioShow.com. Sheri, happy Halloween, and thank you again for coming on the Geek Speak Radio Show.
Thank you very much for having me. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So there you go.
It's true. Halloween is all about candy and spooky stuff and things that we were told not to do when we were young kids.
In that order for you, right?
Right. Candy first, then spooky stuff.
Anyway, so let's take a break. And how about we take a little tour of San Francisco?
Ooh, that'd be nice.
Through the eyes of Alfred Hitchcock.
Oh, that's awesome. Let's do it.
All right, let's do that. We'll be back.
The Geek Speak Radio Show will be right back.
And now, back to the Geek Speak Radio Show on TalkZone.com. Here's Henry and Romo.
Welcome back to the Geek Speak Radio Show. Trying to scare Romo and doing a good job of it.
Yeah, actually, she really scared me with her story of. I've heard about the West Virginia Penitentiary there. I've actually remember watching a show, the first of ghost hunting on. It was on MTV called Fear. One of the best things ever out. I mean, it was the best ghost hunting show there was. It wasn't that much of a ghost hunting thing, but it was more of a contest. You would say you have 7 strangers, or somewhere like 5, 4, whatever. But they would go to a place that's haunted, and they'll be given a camera, and they would have to spend a certain amount of time in a particular room, and they've actually experienced a lot of creepy stuff. And when she was telling, when Sheri was telling me about the West Virginia Penitentiary, I knew exactly what she was talking about because the basement is one of the most haunted places in the room, the whole prison. It's great.
I never saw this show you're talking about.
Yeah,
but. Being that it's on MTV.
Yeah, there's a generation that grew up watching that show. It only happened like around 1 or 2 seasons.
Well, not that. I was going to say, was there a little bit of, what's the word? Shtick factor attached to it? Just because it's MTV?
No, not at all. It was just original. One thing that I did realize, I'm like, well, there's cameras all over the place, right? That, like security cameras. And it always puzzled me. I'm like, well, is it really haunted if they had people before, like during the daytime, setting up equipment? And I don't know. It just makes me kind of question certain things now when I watch, ghost hunting. And have you seen the show Ghost Hunters?
No.
It's another paranormal activity kind of a show, but it's really fun. I mean, it's really, really cool to get to get a side of.
Because I'm gonna say something right now. I like the paranormal. I like ghost stories. I like getting scared, obviously.
Yeah.
But I've never watched these, paranormal shows like Ghost Hunters and all those things.
I think it's not as true.
No, the thing is for me, when you watch those kind of shows, especially like I said a minute ago, when something's on MTV,
yeah,
it's kind of too not Hollywood, but it just doesn't seem real to me, if that makes any sense.
Well, ghost hunting, all these shows, Ghost Hunting and Paranormal State, they're on Discovery Channel. I know what you mean because for me, it's all what makes it scary is the editing part, the post production, the music, the everything. You know, it's really.
See, and me, you know, being in the business, knowing that what happens behind the scenes or put in post production,
really
what
scary.
you can add. I know what can be added. You can just tweak something a little bit and make it sound or look scary.
Yeah.
Now, what we just had with Sheri, something like that, I would really like to do.
Yeah.
Take a tour somewhere, especially to prisons, to abandoned the cemeteries even.
Yeah, why are prisons and insane asylums are the most scariest places in America?
Well, we talked, I think it was...
Is it just the energy that's there?
Yeah, I think it was with Aline when she was on with us last week. And that's why, just because of the energy that's given out.
Yeah, that's like one thing I've always been puzzled. I mean, living in the Bay Area, you said that San Francisco is literally built on a burial ground. It's like
Indian burial ground.
Yeah, and even in Colma, a town nearby, it's literally just a whole town of just...
There's more dead people than alive people.
Right. I think it'd be kind of cool to do an EFP over there because, like you said, EVP, there's so much energy there just because of the cemeteries and the graves. It would be kind of interesting to take a little trip on Halloween over there.
How about we take a trip through San Francisco?
Let's do it.
I mean, I live here. You visit here. 'Cause you actually live across the bay, but
yeah.
I've shown you around. How about you see it in a different light now?
Let's do it.
We've all watched Alfred Hitchcock movies, The Birds, Vertigo, all of those. There's a book out there. And actually, I tried to get it just to read it before we have this interview here, but this is how popular it is, especially around this time.
Yeah.
None of the bookstores here in San Francisco had it. They were all sold out because I tried to put it on hold so I can go get it. You know how we go sometimes to get the books.
Yeah.
I tried to do that, but they were all sold out.
And it's funny because I've actually heard about this book. I have a lot of friends that are Alfred what can I say his last name? Hitchcock.
Hitchcock.
Yeah.
Fans.
Tongue twister right there.
Yeah. Well, for you.
Great director, though.
Yeah, so I ended up having to order it. But on the phone, we have one of the authors of that book, Jeff Kraft. Jeff, you there?
Hey there, guys. Hey, Henry and Romeo. How you doing today?
We're doing great. How are you?
Good.
So like I was saying, I tried to get the book, tried to put it on hold, but apparently since, it is October and everybody wants to get scared, everybody was sold out. So I ended up ordering on your website.
Well, great. Glad to hear you getting on the website. And, that's good that it's been selling. It's been out for a while, and it definitely has a lot of people that are interested in Hitchcock and San Francisco and the Bay Area. They're kind of two exciting combinations, so I think it's got a good interest level.
For you yourself, Aaron also wrote this book with you, but he couldn't be on with us today. But what developed your love of the Hitchcock films?
Yeah, well, I was actually living in the Bay Area at the time, and Aaron Leventhal, my co-author, was as well. And really what started it for us is we were watching a lot of Hitchcock movies, Vertigo kind of being the first one, but a bunch of other movies. And we realized that many of his movies had some kind of a Bay Area connection in terms of the settings or the locations used in the movies. And it just seemed to be a theme that ran through many of his movies. And that sort of led to the interest in sort of figuring out, what were all these locations and settings that Hitchcock used in so many of his films, really from his first film that he made when he came to the United States and started working for, Hollywood Studios, which was Rebecca, which he made in 1939, really all the way through almost the very end of his career through Family Plot in the 1970s.
Right. Do you have your personal favorite Hitchcock film?
Vertigo is certainly up there, and it's kind of the main San Francisco movie in our book, and it really uses San Francisco as such a great part of the movie. San Francisco really almost is like a character in the film, and it goes to so many great San Francisco locations that Vertigo is right up there.
Yeah, to me it would be The Birds. How about you, Roma? You have
The Birds.
The Birds.
That's my favorite one.
Yeah, and that one.
The Birds. It's another great Bay Area movie. Obviously, it's set up north in Sonoma County in Bodega Bay and Bodega and some of the other surrounding areas, and it's one of the Hitchcock movies that's probably a good Halloween movie because it is kind of a science fiction / horror / fantasy that is really a precursor to so many movies, everything from Jaws to some of the current horror movies that are out there today, that deal with nature turning against mankind in a horrific way.
And when you and Aaron decided to sit down and chronicle Hitchcock's use of the San Francisco Bay Area and his movies, how did you go about researching the book?
It was a lot of fun to do, actually. The research was sort of one of the best parts, but we originally were just going to create a map or a poster of the Bay Area and then, mark all the locations on the poster. But we started doing our research, and we found there were so many locations that expanded into a book. And the research really, we did a number of things. One is we spent time at motion picture archives and records. So we went down to places in Southern California, in Beverly Hills, for example, where many of the collections are held at the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences library. And we also went to private collections and, tried to get information that the filmmakers actually, took down when they were doing their filming. So that was one source. We looked at other authors who'd written about books. We actually, much of it was just comparing then and now photographs, taking clips from a movie and knowing it was shot somewhere in San Francisco and then using sort of deductive logic and old historical photographs to kind of figure out what that location might have been.
Yeah, tell us a couple of stories that we can find in the book.
Well, there's some great stories. One of my favorites, which relates to Vertigo, and it's someplace that people can kind of visit today and still get a really authentic experience. If you remember in Vertigo, there's an old bookstore. It's a used bookstore that sells antiquarian books that they go to sort of learn the story of Carlotta Valdez, who's the woman who's haunting one of the protagonists in Vertigo. And they go to this bookstore, and there's a proprietor there who's an expert on San Francisco history, and he tells them the story of Carlotta Valdez. And it turns out that bookstore was modeled after the Argonaut bookstore, which has been around in San Francisco from the 1940s. It's been in a couple of different locations, and it's still there today in San Francisco on Sutter Street, not far from Union Square. And the great thing about that bookstore is it's really very similar today to the one that Hitchcock himself walked into when he was doing location scouting, and he just sort of looked around and said, this just feels like a bookstore. We have to use this as a model for the set that we're creating in our movie. And so you have the same furniture, and it's owned by the same family. It's owned by the son of the original founder today. And it really is it's almost a ghostly experience going there because you're stepping back in time into old San Francisco. And the bookstore itself, its theme is really the history of Gold Rush era San Francisco. So it's kind of like a time traveling experience that takes you back to Vertigo, but then takes you back even further, into San Francisco's Spanish colonial and gold rush past.
Jeff Kraft and Aaron Leventhal, the authors. The book is called The Footsteps in the Fog, Alfred Hitchcock's San Francisco. The links are on geekspeakradioshow.com. And like I said, I tried to buy it, but I'm going to have to wait now because it was all sold out. And it's understandable. I mean, Hitchcock's films are very, very iconic, very famous. A lot of people love them. And, being Halloween, a lot of people want to walk around here in San Francisco and visit some of the places, like Romo mentioned, the Birds and Vertigo, of course. And you're not the only one, actually, Jeff, who's described San Francisco as a character in itself in the movie Vertigo. And yeah, I agree with you with that one also.
Yeah, no, it really, I think so many people get taken in by the San Francisco shown in Vertigo. I mean, Vertigo itself, in a way, is almost a ghost story about San Francisco because sort of the subplot is the past of San Francisco haunting the present of San Francisco in the 50s, and then looking back in it from our time, you sort of get a double mirror back into the history of San Francisco, and it really gives the movie a ghostly, mysterious feeling. And I noticed you guys were talking about Colma, too, when you began your conversation, and of course there are two cemeteries that are shown in Vertigo, and one of the scenes, they don't identify it as Colma, but they actually filmed in one of the cemeteries in Colma. There's a brief scene where Scotty is visiting Madeline's grave after she dies partway through the movie, and that takes place in a cemetery in Colma. And then, of course, another really haunted, mysterious, ghostly place is the very, very old cemetery, the oldest building in San Francisco at Mission Dolores Church. The cemetery there plays a really central role in Vertigo. Yeah,
and you can still go to the Mission Dolores, to the cemetery that it's there. It's often there's a lot of buildings around it now, of course, but you can still go in there. It's still open to the public.
It is, absolutely.
Yeah, and Alfred Hitchcock, he liked using the San Francisco Bay Area so much that there were actually some movies that weren't set in the Bay Area, but he did come back and film some scenes here, correct?
It's true, yeah. There are several that are like that. I mean, one, Topaz, it's not quite the Bay Area, but he uses Salinas, California, as a stand-in for of all strange places like Cuba. So you might not think about that, but he thought the topography down there, was a good stand-in for Cuba. I mean, I think you can think about Psycho. The Bates Mansion, actually, many people believe was inspired by a structure in Santa Cruz. It's now called the Sunshine Villa, and it was a very old Victorian rundown house. It's since been remodeled, but you still has some of the same Victorian character. And Hitchcock had a second home not far from Santa Cruz, so it is very likely that he was aware of the Sunshine Villa, and he definitely was inspired by kind of the Gothic architecture and the Victorian architecture in Northern California, and that sort of helped inspire the Bates Mansion in Psycho.
The book is called Footsteps in the Fog, Alfred Hitchcock's San Francisco, and the links are all up on GeekSpeakRadioShow.com. You guys can go on there and order it like I did. Take a look at some of the excerpts from the book in there. Getting some emails here, and they're asking me, you guys have a chainsaw in there or not? No, we have the window closed, but there's construction going on behind us. It's not, nobody in a chainsaw or anything. That's what's going on back there. We just talked to Sherri Brake, who does paranormal tours. Has anyone ever contacted you guys about, since you wrote the book, given places to go in San Francisco that you don't mention in the book that are used in Alfred Hitchcock's movies?
Well, there definitely are a lot of questions about some of the places that were in Hitchcock's movies, and one of them that jumps out as a location where paranormal activity has been reported, and this wasn't necessarily the focus of the Hitchcock film, was actually the birds. And the schoolhouse, the little one-room schoolhouse in Bodega that looks like it is up the hill in Bodega Bay, where the children are attacked by the birds when they're running down the hill. That old schoolhouse is a historic landmark, and it also has been the site of reputed paranormal activity. And when we were researching the book, we spent time with the owners and got to go inside the house. And I know that several television shows that were sort of doing reports of inhabited ghostly places had featured the Bodega Schoolhouse, the Potter Schoolhouse up in Bodega in Sonoma County, as a location for paranormal activity. And it's also a beautiful scenic location, and really famous from its prominent role in the birds. Besides this book, have you or Aaron, have you guys been working on another book? We've got several ideas, but we both have day jobs, unfortunately, and the book is a labor of love, and we've got some other projects that we're working on, but they're not that far along yet, and so I don't have anything that's fully fleshed out yet into a real idea, but it's a lot of fun to write a book, but it really is a labor of love because it's not a huge revenue generating source. Even if the book's successful, unless you're wildly successful, you got to keep your day job.
Right. Again, Jeff Kraft, he's the author, one of the authors from Footsteps in the Fog, Alfred Hitchcock's San Francisco. The other author is Aaron Leventhal. The links are on GeekSpeakRadioShow.com. You guys can go on there, order it from their website, or the link to Amazon, and all the others are on there also if you guys want to get it. Because as I know, it was all sold out in the San Francisco bookstore. So good luck finding them out there. And Jeff, thanks a lot for coming on the show and talking to us a little bit about the book.
Nice to talk to you guys today.
All right, and have a happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween to you too.
All right, Jeff, thanks a lot. So there you go, young man.
Alfred Hitchcock, I still can't say his name, man. But his movie, The Birds and the Vertigo, I mean,
try this. Hitchcockian 5 times fast.
Hitchcockian. No, but Hitchcock, I've actually passed by the cemetery that you're talking about in the Mission area.
Mission Dolores one?
Yeah. And there's a lot of scenes, Union Square, how it looked back in the bird, like in Vertigo and the Birds. They used the scenic picture of like certain shots of San Francisco, old time San Francisco. I mean, it doesn't look like that anymore, but it looked kind of cool. It is true what, like he was saying, it's like taking a, time travel. You're like time traveling back into the past.
Yeah, a lot of the I live here in San Francisco. I mean, you visit here when you come into the studio. You live across the bay. But a lot of the places, obviously, they've changed over the years, because of, like, you hear the construction going on behind us. And again, that's what it is. It's not Leatherface isn't in the studio with us. It's, I don't know what they're doing over there, really. I don't know if it's a chainsaw or not, but that's what's going on. But a lot of things have changed. I mean, but you can still see, you can take a picture, and if you get Jeff and Aaron's book, Footsteps in the Fog, you can compare it to the pictures, because they do have, I've seen it on their website. Again, I'm waiting for my book to come in. But you can see the pictures on there from the films and compare it, to your digital camera, digital picture today. And you can see the scene, but now you see, buildings and stores and bus stops and all kind of stuff that have grown up around. So it kind of takes away a little bit. The Union Square thing, for example, that one's really, really busy now in San Francisco compared to what it looked like in the movie. Yeah. And that scene where you see Union Square is also where Alfred Hitchcock made his famous cameo, which he can't use the cameo in all the movies that he did.
Yeah, he's like the first to actually do that stuff. So it's kind of like a treasure hunt. Whenever you watch one of his movies, you try to spot him out. It's kind of like, with Sam Raimi, his movies.
M. Night Shyamalan does that also.
Yeah, like Sam Raimi's film with Spider-Man, you have to spot out, Stan Lee. It's kind of fun. It is homage, you would say, to just who he is.
Yeah.
Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah, but again, they're not that scary. The Alfred Hitchcock. Jeff and I were talking about the other day, yesterday I think it was, or Monday, whenever it was, on the phone, and we were talking about how they're not really considered horror movies. The Hitchcock movies are more thrillers, more
suspense,
thoughtful thrillers. They make you think.
Yeah.
But I found this book pretty interesting because, again, I live here in San Francisco, and now it makes me want to go out and see it in a different light.
Is there any stuff? I noticed that none of us even mentioned Psycho as our favorite, but I mean that was to the scenes that was.
Which I mentioned a minute ago, that it's based on an inn that I forget where he said where it was, and again it's all in the book. But that Psycho, the story, the movie, those were not based here in the Bay Area.
Yeah,
and I don't think it was filmed in the Bay Area either.
No, it's one of those great movies to watch on Halloween. It's one of the classics.
Yeah, see that one I guess could be considered a horror, Psycho.
Yeah,
but like Vertigo, The Birds. Speaking of, before we run out of time here, let me ask you this, because I do want to talk about this in the next hour, so it's the only one we have to ourselves this week. Remakes. I want to talk about that.
Yeah.
There has been talk for a while about remaking The Birds.
Yeah.
What do you say?
No. I mean, what they used back in the day, they didn't have no advanced technology to make it look believable. I mean, what it is then, I mean, it fits perfect for the movie in the time for when it was made. Now you're going to expect CG birds. You're going to expect more flashier effects. And I don't care about that. I really just want to pay more attention to the actual movie and the storytelling. Alfred Hitchcock was a great storyteller in all his movies. And so I know that the characters were also one thing that you would love. I mean, in the cinematography of it was great. Now I feel like it's going to be full of effects. It's going to be predictable. You're going to know that they're going to be yelling at you, trying to do that special, to make you scared and jump off your seat like a cheap thrill.
Yeah. Well, the last I heard of it, they were trying to cast George Clooney, and I believe it was either Natalie Portman or Scarlett Johansson in the lead roles. But it's been silent on that front since.
I don't know. I mean, are they going to come back here to Bodega Bay to film? I mean, you're going to have to do that.
I don't know. But end of the hour now. But that leads perfectly into what I want to talk about for a little bit in the first segment next hour. That is movie remakes, and specifically not just any movies. Well, you'll see what I'm talking about in just a few minutes. Thanks again to Sherri Brake for coming on, and Jeff coming on and talking about their book and the tours. So, like I said, let me take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about movie remakes. Don't go anywhere.
The Geek Speak Radio Show will be right back.